Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Goblin and this is the Goblin Cave, and today we are looking at ShadowRun 5th edition, because last week we had a look at ShadowRun 6th edition and some issues came across, or say some issues came up, and I do have the ShadowRun 5th edition as well. It's a game that I've played a little bit of. I've always wanted to play more of. My group had a little bit of issue when it came out, where the person running the game had, I think, the first printing of the core rule book, which had some technical issues, i.e. the book fell apart. Now, he could have sent it back and got it replaced. That would have been no problem. It just, he was running a game and he didn't send it back, and then it just all fell apart. I got my book. I was going to lend it to him, but he just went, yeah, no. Absolutely loved ShadowRun though. It was a really great fun game, and thank you for running it. You know who you are. So I really like ShadowRun. This is the version that I played. I have not played 6th edition, which we spoke about last week. So ShadowRun, what is ShadowRun? ShadowRun is a cyberpunk style world. Oh, sorry, we'll start with you're hearing in the background Syrinscape. Syrinscape is who we go to for all our audio. So we're using Syrinscape, Cyberpunk Forlorn Hope Live Key. I know it's Cyberpunk from Alto Sound Games, but just ignore that. We're running it for ShadowRun because it's still ShadowRun is a cyberpunk setting. So what is cyberpunk? As I just said, it's a cyberpunk setting, but it's not just pure cyberpunk. So dystopian future, mega corporations in charge, governments, they're nothing anymore. Governments pretty much only just run the police and a few other core things like that. Who's in charge? That's totally the corporations, the mega corporations. They run the world. And in ShadowRun, as opposed to something like Cyberpunk, or Cyberpunk Red, Cyberpunk 2020, etc., you actually have magic as well. So you have magic, you have different races, and this is all part of the 6th world. So the 6th world happened when stuff happened and people started becoming trolls or orcs or dwarves. People being born like that as well. People like magic was able to be cast, dragons came back, etc, etc. This is also a time of cybernetics and super high tech. So it's kind of a really cool system. It's very dystopian. You are a part of society called the Sinless, where a SIN is your security identification number. I think that's pretty good. So your security identification number, and you don't have one. So without it, you can't get medical care, you can't get a license for anything, you can't get a job, you can't do anything official. You are a non-person. And as a non-person, you have to essentially get by doing illegal stuff. And that's what you do. You are you essentially work as a professional, or sorry, not really professional, but always professional at least, deniable military asset for mega corporations or for people that have money, and that's kind of how you get by. And it's kind of the way of getting fame and getting money when you don't have a SIN. You use fake SINs. When they get compromised, you just burn them and get another one. You get fake licenses for your weapons and all this types of stuff. And always just trying to stay one step ahead of the law, and of course ahead of the next person trying to kill you. And that could also be the people trying to hire you. So the Johnsons that hire you, and it's always a Mr. Johnson, even if it's a female, they are called Mr. Johnson. That's just a ShadowRun tradition, and it's a tradition I really like too. It's just this little quirk. So the Mr. Johnsons will be the people that hire you. They never give you their real name. It's always, as I said, Mr. Johnson, and they will pay you sometimes. Sometimes they will double cross you. Sometimes they won't give you all the information because you don't deserve all the information. It may be proprietary. It may be something else. Like, it's all cloak and dagger, and that's kind of how the setting works. betrayal is everywhere, even inside your own game. So when I was playing, we had some players. So there's two very different ways of playing. You can play Pink Mohawk, which is very comic and really funny and just like non-serious, or you can play Black Trenchcoat, which is the total opposite, which is totally serious. Everything has to go. So most of the party was playing Black Trenchcoat, but we had one person playing Pink Mohawk. Now we do Pink Mohawk on this channel pretty much across the board. But when we had out this game in the face-to-face group, there was a very different aspect. So there was one person that wasn't fitting in. So my character was actually going, like, saving all his money to then hire another Shadowrun team to assassinate that character. That's kind of how it works in Shadowrun. It gets really dark. But yeah, so it's a really, really, really good setting. I love the setting. The rule system is a different system what most people are used to. So most people are used to, when I talk about this, is the skill plus attribute or attribute bonus plus a dice versus a DC or sorry, difficulty class or a target number or something along the lines. Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, those type of things. Dungeons & Dragons 5 and 3, I don't really know 4, but yeah. So in Shadowrun, we have something called a dice pool. So a dice pool, the core system is using something called a dice pool, where you have your attributes and your skills are essentially out of 10, and that's the amount of dice you use. So if you're trying to do firearms, you do dex plus firearm skill, and that's the amount of dice. That's your pool of dice to use, and you can get really big pools of dice, like over 20 sometimes, depending on how big you are, plus other bonuses. So you can get bonuses from the weapons, you can get bonuses from situations, bonuses from cybernetics, magic, etc. And so you'd roll all those dice. You don't add them all up. So in a dice pool, you don't add all the dice up. What you do is so I'm just turning that down a little bit there. So you don't add it up. What you do is you only look for 5s and 6s. So you look for 5 6s for a hit or for a success. So you total up all those successes, all those hits, and you tell that to the games master, or the storyteller, etc., to say this is how many you've got. You also need to take care and keep an eye on how many 1s you get, because while 1s don't take away your hits, 1s can also be a bad thing. So if you have half or more, so I'll go back to the page just to make sure I'm saying the right thing here. Glitches. So if half or more, here we are, specifically half or more of the dice you roll come up as 1s, then you glitch. So you can actually succeed and glitch at the same time. But if you can also glitch and have 0 hits at all, 0 successes, and that means you have a critical glitch. So that's the two versions of glitch. You have a glitch where you can just like half or more and you still have some successes, and you may have enough successes to actually pass the check as well, because it's not just one success to pass the check. Sometimes you need 2, sometimes 3, 4, 5. It's usually not 1, it's usually multiples, and depending on how hard the check is, of course. So there's your 2 glitches there, and you've also got something called limits. So you may be limited to the amount of dice, so the amount of successes. So you can get like 5, 6, 7 successes, but if you have a limit of say 3, just because of the equipment they're using, if you're using a really dodgy firearm, you're not going to be able to get 10 successes or 10 hits. You only may be able to get like 3. So you are limited by the equipment that you use, and sometimes you're also limited by the attributes that you use. So you've got to keep mindful of that. And that's about the entire system. I'm not kidding. Yes, there's individual rules about what am I? So there's individual rules about spell casting. There's individual rules about hacking and things like that. But the core mechanics is just those few things. So dice pools is your attribute. So it's right here. Attribute plus skill plus modifiers. So your modifiers actually go into your dice pool. You get more dice or less dice. And you roll those dice. You see how many ones you have, and if that's less, if it's half or more, you have a glitch. And then you also count how many 5s and 6s. 5s and 6s are hits or successes, and you tell the GM how many successes you have. The checks are not always going to be a 1 success you succeed, also 1 hit equals success. It would most likely be a 2 or 3, sometimes 5 or 6 hits to succeed in a task. Opposed rolls are pretty much treated. You're rolling dice, he or she rolls dice as opposed, and you see how many people, like who gets the most, and that's really simple there. So it's got here your target number as well. So your target number is how many hits you need to succeed. So target number is always 5 if you roll 5, or that's target number of on the dice number. So I'm a little bit confused. Catalyst Labs uses TN or target number in their two role playing games, and yeah, they're using for a different purpose in this one. So yes, on each dice you need to get a 5 or a 6. There you go. That's where it's got target number there. So firearms and agility is to use a gun. Smacking someone with a baseball bat is clubs plus agility. Read a scrolled note written in Japanese plus intuition. Attempt to negotiate, make for a better deal, negotiation plus charisma. That's what I'm reading up here. Spellcraft, use a spell to heal an ally, spellcasting plus magic, and then etc, etc, etc. So the core mechanics, as I said, is really, really simple. It's different from what people are used to, but it's actually a really nice, simple system. I do have it listed in the overlay here saying that it's a rules heavy system. That's when we get into the combat, because in combat it's not just it's not a case of you roll your dice, see if you hit the AC. No, you roll dice to see if you hit. They then, well, we'll get into that. We'll actually go through the cycle here. So it's got the list of successes and types of stuff. I do like this. We're actually referencing off the quick start rules. So this is something you can pick up. I believe it's free in DriveThruRPG, or you can go to Catalyst Games Labs and see if you can get it from there. CatalystGamesLabs.com, that is. So it's a really good sheet for 5th edition. It's even got your examples and everything here. A lot of examples, a lot more than you usually find in quick start rules. So in combat, a combat turn, each combat turn is 3 seconds. So that's really, really quick. Combat turn attempts to mimic real combat, resolve issues such as who acts first, who is faster than draw, etc, etc. So you roll initiative. This is again not adding. This is not the dice pool where you looking for 5 or 6s, looking for hits. This time you're adding the numbers. So you're doing the character's initiative is, I think it's determined. It's got where it is determined by. Oh, it's not got to where it's determined. There you go. Reaction plus intuition plus any implant bonuses like cybernetics or magic, etc. bonuses there. And what you do with that is you're just rolling d6s and you're adding them all up. So this is one of the rare occasions in the systems where you're adding all your d6s to get the highest number possible. Now, you then start from the highest down, and characters involved in combat now take their actions sequentially. The first initiative pass with the starting with the character who has the highest initiative. The character is the acting character if more than one character has the same initiative, they go at the same time. That can get a little bit confusing, but it can, if you get used to it, it can be really exciting where you have a firefight and you've got multiple people throwing dice left, right, and center, and multiple people throwing grenades and shooting and whatever in a really like hyper combat. It can be really fun if your group gets used to the rules and they're paying attention, and you can actually run them simultaneously. Like you can actually run turns simultaneously, where someone's like, okay, I'm shooting this person, and someone's like, okay, I'm getting fired at by that person, and it can get really confusing, but it can get really exciting if you get used to it. But again, it can be confusing. So begin the action phase. The acting character now declares and takes his actions, his or her, of course. Declare the actions. The acting character declares the actions for the action phase and may take 2 simple actions or 1 complex action. The character may also declare 1 free action in addition to any declared actions during the action phase. So the combat actions table found in each pre-generated character sheet describe which actions fall into which category. So it's even in the character sheets, it also tells you what it is, at least in these pre-generated ones. So you declare and resolve the actions of the remaining characters, move to each character in sequence, the highest initiative score, then move to the character with the highest initiative score, repeat section 3, continue to cycle through until all the characters have been resolved in this initial pass. Then what happens is you reduce the initiative scores and you begin the next phase. So all initiative scores at this point are reduced by 10, and then the characters who still have initiative score above 0 get to act again. So this is where initiative becomes really interesting. Because if you don't have much initiative, much intuition and reaction, you might, like if you have 1 in each, you might be able to get 12 and have 2 actions. If you have like 6 in each, or 7 or 8, like not in each but combined in that pool, you can get a lot of actions. Combat acts really, really, really quickly, and it's really dangerous. The mechanics though is slow, but this is a 3-second where you could have multiple things going on. You could have multiple turns in that 3 second, multiple passes in that 3 seconds. So it gets really, really, really nasty. So that's a really important thing to do, and it's very different to most systems these days. But I really like this one. I like how it works because it does give that benefit to someone that's put a lot into initiative. So if you have someone like in D&D or in Pathfinder who has the feat improved initiative and has the dex and has everything that works together, and they have, let's say, +10 to their initiative, they get to act first. Yeah, great, but they still want to get the same amount of attacks or same amount of actions or same amount of whatever's. In this, you get so much more for that investment. So much more. Of course, you don't have those feats, but you get so much more for investing into initiative. It's a big thing. So movement, there's 2 types of movement. There's running, there's walking. So that's all taken care of. We don't really need to go into that. Yeah, you can read it there if you want to, but yep. So combat tests. These quick start rules include 2 types of combat: ranged and melee. Combat is handled as an opposed test between the attacker and defender. The exact skills and attributes used depend on the type of combat method used. Specifically, range will be using your ranged weapons, etc., and hand-to-hand or melee will be using, So the combat sequence: you declare your attack. I'm going to attack this enemy, blah blah blah. You apply situation modifiers. whatever's there, there's modifiers in the GM screen, which is actually included. I love that this has a GM screen, and this is just a quick start rules. Quick start rules should have GM screens because you're teaching your GM as well as you're teaching new players. Very important. Include them, please. So player situational modifiers. You make your opposed test. So one person rolls, the other person rolls, and see who wins. If the attacker scores more hits than the defender, if the attacker scores more hits than the defender wins on ties. So if the attacker scores more hits, then the attacker wins. If there's a tie, the defender wins. That's what it's trying to say there. Otherwise, the attack misses. If the attacker hits the target, note the net amount of hits. So net amount of hits is if they defend with 3 hits, you attack with 5 hits, you have 2 on top of that. So 2 net hits above their 3. So 5, 3, you have 2 extra on top of. So it's actually important to have that because that adds into damage later on, which is really cool. So you then you compare the armor. So add the net hits scored to the base damage value. So you're not rolling extra dice for the value. It's got a set value for the damage. So that 2 will then add to maybe a 6, so then makes 8. This is the damage modified value. The damage determine the armor type that it's defended against, and then apply the armor. Then apply the attack's armor penetration, because some things will go through armor better. And so this is where it gets a little bit clunky. If the attack causes physical damage, compare the modified damage value to the modified armor value. If the damage value does not exceed the armor, then the attack inflicts stun rather than physical. So if that gets a little bit clunky, you can pause it. You can reread that a few times. It does actually, there's a little, like, it slows things down a little bit, but it makes things really interesting because it actually, because of the one in front of it, the net hits in front, actually adds more damage to people that have more skill, like for a better hit, and that's where it comes in. You get more stuff in, and then it compounds if the armor isn't as good, etc. So you resist the damage. The defender rolls body plus modified armor value to resist the damage. Each hit they score reduces the modified damage by 1. So what happens there is when you compare the armor, you make sure all that's up, you go through the armor penetration, you've got the net hits plus the damage value, plus the armor penetration, etc. compared against the armor. The person then rolls their armor value plus their damage resist, and the amount of hits that they get on their resistance reduces the damage. So you can get a lot of damage really quickly if you don't have armor, because all you've got is your body to try to soak up a lot of damage that comes through. Applying damage, so you apply the damage value to the target's condition monitor, and the more damage you take, the more minuses you get for your dice pool as well, which is also really nice. So I think it's every 3 or every 4 damage you put down, you then go down another track, which gives you a minus to your dice pool. Again, I like that system. It takes a little bit to get used to. This is where it becomes into that heavy rule set. But it does work once you get used to it. It really does. And you've got to be very much paying attention. So range attack modifiers, it's very simple. Using your different attribute and different skill, of course. So you're firing. So you've also got single shot and semi-automatic. You've got to take note of that. We've got different settings for single shot as well. You just got to be kind of aware of that. Okay, so that's for range. Okay, that was all range. Yeah. Melee, again, it's right here. You can pause it and you can go through the examples. It does kind of work. It actually does kind of work. It really makes things fun. And this is a game where combat is a big thing. You need to get used to it. Like, your players do need to get used to the combat. And you need to be paying attention because, as I said this last week with the ShadowRun 6th edition, the idea is that you're, how can I work? Because you're doing opposed rolls, if someone attacks you, you've got to actively defend them. And so you've got to be paying attention to who's attacking you because you're rolling your defense. And you're rolling your soak dice in their attack phase. They're attacking you, but you're rolling your defense and your soak dice in conjunction to that. So it's really important that you're paying attention and that you're aware of everything going on. That's what I said. If you use the whole simultaneous turn taking, it can get really complex, but it can get really fun as well because you've got multiple people rolling soak and rolling dice, rolling defense, etc. against multiple attacks. Maybe it just gets really, really chaotic, and that's what ShadowRun can be. It can be very chaotic if you want to take it that far, or you can just go, okay, we'll do this person first, then this person, but they realistically go at the same time. You can do it that way if you want. I actually probably would recommend doing it the easier way, which is not doing it simultaneously. But if you're good, if your group knows the rules really well, go for the simultaneous. It just creates so much chaos. So you've got damage codes as well. You've got DV for damage value. You've got armor penetration, etc. You've got wound modifiers. So we do have a rune track as well. Just scroll down to show you kind of what that looks like. So down here is the rune track. So if you take damage, so you got stun damage, then you got physical damage. So if you get to there, you start getting -1. You get to there, you start getting -2 and -3, and then so that's actually minus to your dice pool. So things become harder to do it. And you've got, these are the character sheets as well. You've got Street Samurai, Street Shaman, Street Samurai, a Decker, a Combat Adept, and that's what you've got. So they're really, really cool. Cool classes. So it's a class system. How it works is it's a class system, but it's a levelless system. So you don't go up a level as you go through missions, as you go through sessions. You will get karma, and karma is essentially your experience, and you buy your abilities by your karma. The higher your ability is, it costs more karma to go up, and it costs a set amount to start an ability from 0 to get that first step. I believe it's a 1 times the new level, and it's more for the. So if you're going from 1 to 2, it's going to cost you 2. If you go to 3, so it could even be 2. So it could be, if you're going to 2, like going from 1 to 2, it could cost you, it could cost you 4 or something like that. I can't remember it fully, but it's a nice little system where you can customize your character wherever you want, and it doesn't rely on you go up a level and you're going to get this choice or this choice, which you might want to go a totally different direction because your party needs that direction, because this is a game of specialists. Each person that you play, each character in the group needs to be a specialist. They need to be able to do their job and do their job really, really well. And it's the idea of each person does their job really well, so they don't have to rely on anyone else. And you have all these specialists working together to get a job done. The only one that's kind of a generalist is usually the face. The face is your communicator, your talker. They may fill in a secondary role a little bit if they're needed, but their primary role is the face. And then there may also be a gunner, or there may also be a rigger, or there may also have something else at a lesser degree, just to fill in another space. They're really important. The face is actually really important, but they're also one of the few ones, as I said, that have a secondary role. Usually a shaman or a mage or Street Samurai, etc., are just absolutely focused, or Decker, etc., are just focused on their one thing. They don't have any secondary role at all. So I like the face because they have that secondary role, and they've got a bit more adaptability in combat or in other situations, especially social, where the others might go, what? And cause a fight, which generally is what happens. So this is a short one. I don't think we need to go through anything more. There is an edge system. It's not really even mentioned here that I saw. I mean, I can do a... Let's see. No, we've got knowledge. What else have we got? Knowledge. 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 Yep. Razor's Edge. Bleeding Edge. Yep. Knowledge. Knowledge. Yep. So there is an edge system, but it's not important compared to how it's built into the 6th edition, where it's the core system is the edge system, where in this you actually do get edges. It's essentially luck, but it's not even mentioned in the quick start rules because it's not that important. It's not an important part of the system, and it doesn't really come into it anywhere near as much as the 6th edition. So if you're struggling with 6th edition, I would highly recommend going back to 5th. It's still a great product. The world is still there. It's got more source books. And you can just use the 6th edition source books as well. Just take away the edge from as an importance and just same things in. I really think it's amazing. It is a very different game to a lot of games out there because it's a bit more clunkier, that combat. It's a very combat heavy game and infiltration and heavy game. So you just need to be paying a bit more attention in those combat rounds. You can't just drift off, because if you're targeted, you need to be rolling dice. You need to be active. And as I said with the other one last week, if you can, the one thing I've seen that speeds it up was I used to watch Corporate Sins on Hyper RPG, and they used to have little dice boxes, clear dice boxes for, okay, if I have to resist, this is the amount of dice I've got, and I just shake it, and that's my resistance. Or if I attack, I probably wouldn't do it for attacks, but I'd do it for defense and soaking. That way you have your set values already in a box. It's essentially they just had clear dice, the clear Chessex dice boxes. That's all it was that you get with the Chessex dice, and they just had them in there and shake. Yep, that's how many, and it's just simple. And so I would highly recommend using that or something similar, because you need to be able to defend yourself really quickly and go, yep, done. Okay, if you need to have any other modifiers, you just roll them with any other dice you've got around near you. But it's a really cool, I highly recommend Shadowrun. The setting is so good. There's 20 years worth of material out there. This is the 5th edition. There's a 6th edition above it, which came out last year. I would recommend 5th edition more than 6th, just with that core mechanic. I'm looking on the channel to run the 6th edition and 5th edition, so 6th edition beginner box and this actual quick start rules for 5th edition. It does have a little scenario after this called the food fight, which is common to the actual Shadowrun that's been there for a while. So I'm looking to run both of them back to back, and just with the same players as well, just to have them experience the two different systems and get a good comparison of which ones they like, which system they prefer. I prefer this one more than the 6th one. But yeah, when it does come to the hacking and all the other bits and pieces, as I said last week as well, the GM, the storyteller, the best way of doing it is not having to is having the players learn their class and their class skills, and they're the rules lawyer for that. That's probably the best way of doing it. Storyteller, just focus on the core mechanics and combat mechanics. Because combat mechanics is across the board, general. If someone is someone is not really great with rules stuff, probably push them towards maybe a street samurai. That way they don't have to, they learn the combat mechanics, which everyone has to learn anyway. They don't have to learn hacking, they don't have to learn rigging, they don't have to learn shamans and mages and everything else, which gets more complicated. Yeah, I would rather have the idea of having the players know their specific roles and they're the rules lawyer for their roles. That way you don't, as the GM, have to learn the entire book. It's a big book, and it's a really, really good one, but a lot of it is specific rules when it gets into hacking, spellcasting, etc. Cybernetics come into a lot of fun. They can be really, really cool, and it's really, really great. You get glitches, you get vices and flaws for your character as well. So you get extra points in character creation in the full rules. So you can be a mage with a flaw that technology breaks when you touch it, which is a really cool flaw for a mage. When mages can't really use. So I want to point this out that it's a system which has cybernetics and high tech and magic. So the system is built so that if you want to do a mage, it actually reduces your ability to do cybernetics. If you want to go cybernetics, it reduces your ability to do magic. So the two are a pivot point, and you can't do both at once. If you do both at once, you're going to be very little of either. It's better to do one side or the other instead of having very little on both. So that's one of the things I really liked about it too, is that again, you're doing very much specialists. There's not really I'm going to be a skill monkey, etc. No, it's good to be a very specialist in one thing, be good at one thing, so that the rest of the party doesn't have to. The rest of the party just rely on you being able to do that. And that's how it works really well. So highly recommend 5th edition Shadowrun. I haven't played 4th, so I don't have much info on 4th. I've heard some good things about 4th as well anyway, but check it out. The system's actually pretty simple, and get your hands on the quick start rules. I believe it's going to be on DriveThruRPG. If not, check out catalypsgameslabs.com and you'll be able to track it down there. Just remember, 5th edition, not 6th. That's the one we're looking at today. So that's pretty much it. What are your thoughts? Have you played Shadowrun? Have you done other Shadowrun systems? What systems should we do next? What would you like me to showcase or read through or to bring out there? I'm open. I've got lots of stuff. I'm possibly going to actually look at to add on to all these cyberpunk styles. I might actually be looking at getting I do actually have it, but I might actually bring the next on coming weeks I think it's Carbon 2185. I had a quick look at it yesterday. It's been a while, and it's different. It's the same but different because it's based off another rule system which everyone knows. So I might bring it out next week and just have just a little bit of a showcase on that one. If you like the cyberpunk style but don't want to change rule systems, like say Cyberpunk Red from Sound Games, Shadowrun from Catalyst Games Labs, have a look at Carbon 2185. I actually can't remember who it's from, but the system might be very familiar to you. So anyway, I'm going to cut it here. So leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, the bits and pieces. Again, loving Syrinscape. This is amazing audio. Check them out for all your online, offline gaming needs. They just are amazing for Cyberpunk, for Call of Cthulhu style games, for fantasy games. They've got it all. They've got you covered totally. Even board games, of course, because that's also what they do. So yeah, I'm going to leave it. So for me, it's a bye from now.